For years, the tech world has been waiting for a Windows laptop that could actually look a MacBook in the eye without blinking. We've had false starts, broken promises, and chips that ran out of steam before the first update finished. But then, the Signal 65 benchmarks for the Snapdragon X Elite dropped, and the numbers aren't just good. They're a total rethink of what's possible on a PC. We're talking about a 30% lead in multi-core performance over the Apple M3. This isn't a marginal gain. This is a leap that changes the entire conversation.
When we look at the multi-core scores, the Snapdragon X Elite isn't just winning, it's dominating the thin and light category. It's pushing 12 high-performance cores against the M3's 8-core configuration. In the Signal 65 testing suite, this translated to a massive advantage in heavy workloads, like video rendering and complex multitasking. It's the kind of power we usually only see in bulky gaming rigs. But performance is only half the story. The real shocker came when they unplugged the charger. That's where things got truly wild.
21 hours. That is the tested battery life for local video playback on the new Snapdragon hardware. Let that sink in for a second. That's enough to fly from New York to Singapore and still have power left for a movie. It matches, and in some cases beats, the legendary efficiency of Apple's MacBook Air. Qualcomm has finally cracked the code on performance per watt. But how did they fix the one thing that killed every Windows on ARM attempt before this? In the past, Windows on ARM felt like driving a supercar with a speed limiter. Native apps were fast, but everything else was a laggy, stuttering mess. The problem was the translation layer. It was slow and efficient and made even simple apps feel heavy. It was the Achilles heel of the entire platform. But with the Snapdragon X Elite, Microsoft and Qualcomm introduced something new. They call it Prism, and it's a total game changer for legacy software.
Prism isn't just a rename of the old tech, it's a complete architectural overhaul, designed to make x86 apps run as if they were built for ARM from day one. The result? Apps like Chrome, Spotify, and even heavy creative tools are launching faster and running smoother than ever before on this architecture. But to understand how they pulled this off, we need to dive into the actual code translation, because the engineering here is genuinely brilliant.
Think of Prism as a world-class translator. In the old days, the translator had to look up every single word in a dictionary while the speaker was talking. It was slow and exhausting. Prism is different. It uses a technique called just-in-time and ahead-of-time compilation to predict what the app needs before it even asks for it. It caches these translations, so the second time you open an app, it's not translating anymore. It's just running. It's nearly as fast as native code.
Microsoft claims Prism offers a 2x performance increase over their previous emulation attempts, and the benchmarks actually back this up. In Signal 65's testing, x86 apps running through Prism on the Snapdragon X Elite often outperformed native apps on older Intel-based laptops. That is a massive milestone. It means the app gap that haunted Windows on ARM for a decade is effectively closed. You can finally just use your laptop without checking a compatibility list.
But it's not just about software. The hardware architecture itself is a beast. Qualcomm's Orion CPU was designed by the same engineers who built some of Apple's most successful chips. They brought that mobile-first efficiency to the PC, but with the thermal headroom to let the cores really stretch their legs. This isn't a phone chip in a laptop body. This leads to a fascinating trade-off in design, because while Apple is obsessed with silence, Qualcomm and its partners are taking a different path. Some critics argue that emulation will always be a compromise. They point to the slight overhead that still exists compared to pure native ARM code. And it's true, there is a small tax. But for 99% of users, that tax is now invisible. The hardware is finally fast enough to pay it without you ever noticing. The real test isn't in the benchmarks, though. It's in the physical reality of how these machines handle heat. And that's where the Surface Pro 11 gets interesting. To keep that 30% performance lead, you need cooling. You can't cheat physics. While the MacBook Air stays fanless, the Surface Pro 11 embraces the fan. This choice reveals a fundamental difference in philosophy. Apple prioritizes the perfect silent experience. Microsoft and Qualcomm are prioritizing sustained raw power. But does that fan make it a worse device? Or is it the secret weapon that allows the Snapdragon to finally pull ahead? Let's look at the thermal throttling numbers. Here is the reality of modern computing. Heat is the enemy of speed. When a chip gets too hot, it slows down to protect itself. We call this thermal throttling. The MacBook Air is a masterpiece of fanless design, but in long workloads, it eventually has to tap out.
It slows down to stay cool. The Surface Pro 11, with its active cooling, can hold its peak performance for much longer. In the Signal 65 tests, this allowed it to maintain that 30% lead even during hour-long renders. So the trade-off is simple. Do you want a silent laptop that occasionally slows down, or a laptop with a whisper-quiet fan that never quits? For the first time in a decade, Windows users don't have to choose between portable and powerful. You can have both, and you can have it with ARM efficiency. This is a massive shift for the industry. It's not just about Microsoft versus Apple. It's about the end of the x86 monopoly on high-end Windows PCs. Intel and AMD are watching this very closely. For years, they didn't have to worry about ARM on the desktop. Now, they're facing a chip that beats them at their own game. The Snapdragon X Elite is forcing the entire industry to innovate faster. We're already seeing rumors of new efficiency-first chips from the traditional giants, but Qualcomm has a massive head start. They've proven that ARM on Windows isn't just a niche project anymore. It's a viable premium alternative. Is it perfect? Not yet. There will still be some obscure apps or drivers that struggle, but the foundation is finally solid. The Signal 65 benchmarks have given us the first real proof that the ARM transition for Windows is actually happening, and it's happening fast. This is the most exciting time to be a PC enthusiast in over a decade. The competition is back, and the winners are the people who use these machines every day. So the question isn't, can ARM work on Windows anymore? The benchmarks have answered that with a resounding yes. The real question is, how will Apple respond? We are entering a new era of computing where the architecture matters less than the experience. And right now, that experience is looking better than ever. The Snapdragon X Elite isn't just a new chip. It's the start of a new chapter for the PC. And honestly, I can't wait to see what happens next.